All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Hakkola. I'm the founder of Build Your Private Practice. We're an organization and a community consisting of over 3,000 Canadian mental health practitioners. Our team of coaches teaches fellow counselors how to launch, grow, and scale thriving practices. And if you're a Canadian therapist who wants to go into private practice or is already in private practice, but would like to find more of the right clients or learn how you can scale your business, I invite you to visit our website at buildyourprivatepractice.ca. That is enough about me. We are here today because we are here with the founder and director of our landing place, a queer-centered therapy collective, Alice Curitz. And Alice has been a member of our community in private practice for several years now, but more importantly, has been making a big impression on both mental health and the queer community for several years now. And we're here today to do a bit of an interview and find out more about our landing place and, more importantly, some of the endeavors that you're up to. So Alice, I'd love if we could just start off by having you share a bit about what is our landing place.
Our landing place is, as you said, we're a queer-centered therapy collective, essentially. So what we are is a place that we work completely virtually, that the LGBTQ2A plus community can come and receive competent and affirming mental health care. And then we also support other clinicians and organizations and individuals in terms of doing trainings for LGBTQ plus mental health competency. And we work with organizations to help them structure their organizations so that they can truly be competent with the community.
Amazing. That is so needed. So clearly our landing place focuses on LGBTQ plus mental health. And I'm curious, as I'm sure our viewers are as well, what inspired you to choose that as your focus?
This all goes back to way back when. I was an undergrad student, not yet doing anything to do with therapy myself. And so I got broken up with, and I was completely brokenhearted. And so after several months of being just really, really sad, I was like, I know, I'll go to therapy. This is what will be helpful. So I found a therapist, and I had said, you know, I'm a queer woman. I want to make sure that I'm working with somebody oh yeah, that's totally fine. Don't worry. They gave me a therapist. I showed up having never had therapy before. And this very, very lovely therapist took me into her office, and I tell her my whole story, and I'm just crying and totally heartbroken. And she hasn't got a clue what to do with me. She looked like a deer in headlight.
No.
And she through about an hour of me just spilling all of my stuff to her. And then at the end, and I could see that she really wanted to be compassionate, but she just didn't know how to show up for me. And at the end, she told me that perhaps it would be helpful to find a friend to talk to about this. And looking back on it, it was just that she wasn't yet competent in working with the queer community. At the time, I didn't internalize that very well. And so after a few years and, you know, mending my heart, there was some other stresses happening in my life. And actually at the time it was work stress. And I thought, you know, I'm going to give this therapy thing another try. And I went somewhere completely different, and I found a therapist. And because I was going for work stress, I really didn't think that anything about my sexuality needed to come up. Wonderful therapist, really helped me with the work stuff, but I felt like I had to compartmentalize my life in order to show up in the sessions. And so I left that, you know, I did my sessions with her, and I left that, and I thought, you know, it definitely helped me in what I wanted to, but I didn't get the depth of connection that I really needed. And so as I then started training to be a therapist, you know, and then I saw different therapists, because I strongly believe that, you know, therapy is awesome. Not that everyone needs to be in therapy forever, but I do think that, you know, therapy is great.
There's a time and a place for sure.
Absolutely. Especially as therapists, I think that it's really important that we do our own work.
Absolutely.
And so I, you know, had kind of put it out there, like, you know, I'm a queer woman. I'm, you know, in a long-term relationship with another woman, and I was living in a very, very small town. There were no other queer therapists, and I had a fantastic therapist who was very competent and affirming, totally got me. And that was a really great experience. And so when I started, like really thinking about what I was going to do after I graduated and how I wanted to work in the field, I thought, this is my community. I'm really passionate about it. I've always done LGBTQ diversity trainings. I've always been a part of the community. I've served on Pride Society committees, and I've done a lot of fundraising and education. And I just thought, really want to work with the community. And so I thought, I'll just put myself out there as a queer therapist and see what happens.
Wow.
Well, what happened was that my practice filled up with predominantly LGBTQ plus clients.
Right. There was clearly a huge need for that, which you discovered yourself, and then really filled that gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, you certainly understand from your own personal journey, like why that became so obvious and important to you to start your own private practice. But today, our landing place isn't just you, it's a rapidly growing organization with 7 therapists. And, the collective of you offers individual counseling, you offer couples counseling, you offer workshops and consultation, just to name a few things. And I don't imagine things were always this way. So can you take me and our viewers back to a time before our landing place existed, and just give us a little bit of information about how did that get started?
Yeah, so before it was our landing place, it was Alice Curitz Counseling Services. And it was just little me. And I was having a great time. It was fantastic. But it was just me. And I wasn't able to serve the entire community because there's only so many hours in a day. Yeah. And then as COVID hit and things transitioned to online, I'd always had a mix of in-person and online clients, but the majority being in-person clients. Mm-hmm. As I transitioned into online and loved it, I started seeing clients from so many different places. And so then the need just grew and grew and grew. And I couldn't obviously do it all by myself. And I was getting a lot more requests for trainings because now organizations that were outside of driving distance from me could access me very easily and feel much more comfortable and competent working with Zoom and all of those things. So, I just thought, well, there's a need for it. And also it's really nice to get to work in a collective. So I'm going to create that. I'm going to bring people in that, kind of in a similar mindset to me in terms of who they want to work with and who they are. It was really important to me that, when I started Alice Curitz Counseling Services, I really started it from what would I want to see as the client. So, my website that I put together, which looking back on it, I don't know what I was thinking. I loved it at the time. It's one of those things I'm like, oh, I would make so many changes now that I have to think about that. But, the
hindsight
website
is 2020.
Right? The booking page, the policies, the offerings that I had were very much what would I want to see as a member of my community, and then getting feedback from the community of other things that people in the community might want that I hadn't maybe thought of. And so I really wanted to just expand that as opposed to just diversifying. And so I brought in what was supposed to be 1, but ended up being 2 really amazing associates. And then we just kept growing.
Wow.
And so now there's 7 of us, which is really exciting. And it's incredible. A really wonderful group of us. We collaborate really well. We have a really great time working together, and we're still filling the needs of our community. We're all LGBTQ plus identified, and that's something that's, I think, really important. It doesn't mean you have to be in order to work with the community. It's really unique. That is what our landing place is.
Right. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I know that you're one to toot your own horn, so I will. Best Health Magazine recently named you as one of the top Canadian healthcare providers of 2021, in part because of the Queering Mental Health Conference, which you run annually. Firstly, what is the Queering Mental Health Conference all about?
So the Queering Mental Health Conference, I get really excited about it.
I can see that.
So what it is, it's an online conference. This year it's 2 days. Last year it was one very long day. And so we have learned from this, and we decided to do it a little bit more paced. It's an online conference that has an intersectional lens on how queerness and mental health intersect and the nuances of that. And so it's essentially an amazing opportunity to learn from folks with lived experience in queer and trans communities, with professional experience in mental health, really looking at things that are a little bit outside of the box. It's not your traditional trainings. The approach to it is very much a community conversation, with sort of attempting to move away a little bit from that traditional, a specific modality that you're training in. It's more like, hey, here's my lived and professional experience. This is what we're noticing. Here are ways that you can better understand and work with the community, but way beyond the ABCs of LGBT, because I think that that is very important, and that there are still many folks that really need that and would get value from that. But this goes beyond that for those of us that already work with the community, or maybe you're a part of the community, or perhaps are interested in learning more than just how to use correct pronouns, or what is gender, what is sexuality, how to update my forms in my clinic. It's really about the nuances. So for example, it might be about specifically working with one of the topics we're covering is specifically working with eating disorders with gender variant people. So we're looking at, like, what does that look like outside of those traditional boxes that we tend to think about it in?
Wow. That's okay. So I have a lot of questions, but what comes to mind first is, so it's one thing to start up a private practice or to start up an associate practice. What was it that drove you to go from that only in the last couple of years to now organizing a nationwide and now actually international conference specifically focused on LGBTQ plus mental health?
Kind of started like my therapy journey started, in that I was looking for this and I couldn't find it. I was thinking about what kind of continuing education do I want to do, and I was like, oh, I really want to learn about all of these nuanced things from people in the community, in a way that feels very unique and very new, a little bit innovative, not something I could read in a textbook, not something that necessarily is like a certificate that I put on my wall, but something that like really grows my knowledge so that I can just show up better for my clients. And so I was like, great, I'm just going to find that. And then I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked, and I couldn't really find what it is that I wanted. And so I was like, well, if anyone who knows me will know, I was like, well, I'll just make it then. I'll just do it.
Okay. So Alice, to your credit, it is a huge undertaking to organize a conference of this size, especially with no blueprint to go by. Like, no one has done anything like this before. How did you decide, what you wanted the conference to look like how you wanted to design it?
The same way I designed Alice Curitz counseling services, the same way I designed our landing page. What do I want to see?
I'm
what does the
noticing
community want to see? So the first year that we ran the conference, we got some incredible submissions for topics. And because I kind of just started it for myself and I reached out to people in my network, quite a few of the people that presented were people that I either knew or I knew through other people. Not everybody, but quite a few. And so there was a lot of really great collaboration and really listening to what people wanted to present on, or how they wanted to present it, what the setup would be good for them. As community members themselves, and then also learning from experience of, it was too long of a day, it was too much back to back, and so pacing it, slowing down the pace, hearing feedback from people that attended, like, oh, I really loved it, I'd love to learn more about this, or this will be really helpful next time. And so really just taking that and creating something that actually works for the community that is going to come to the conference.
Right. And I imagine that this being the second year too, like, as you're saying, you've taken a lot of what you learned in the first year, what worked and what didn't, and we can imagine it's only going to be better this time around. And as I can certainly tell from listening to you talk, and I'm sure everybody watching can tell as well, that, this sounds like a real passion project for you. And I have to ask, are you this passionate about everything that you do?
I am not passionate about the paperwork and the admin that I do.
I hear you.
I'm not passionate about doing my dishes or cleaning my house, but I think that one of the huge perks of being in private practice is that you get to create a practice that works for you, and in turn that then works for your clients, because the people that want to come and see me, that's some kind of connection there already. And so that's what I do. I am so excited to work on my business, to work on the conference, to work with my clients. I don't have a single client that I'm like, oh no, like this is going to be so difficult. I love the clients that I work with.
That's good, especially if any of them are watching.
Hi everyone. And they kind of know that about me, that I'm just like, I show up very authentically. Like, this is who I am. This is how I am. You get me when you work with me. You get elements of me in the conference. You get me in our landing place. When you hire our team to do any kind of a workshop or a training, you get our landing place, and part of that is me, and part of that is the team, that we're diverse, and also we have some similarities, and so we're very consistent in that way. But yes, I am always passionate about this stuff because I genuinely love doing this.
Right. I think that's a huge bonus for anyone signing up too, is knowing that they're connecting and tapping like just that kind of energy and passion, which, like, who doesn't want to connect to that, right? I'm speaking for myself anyway. But so tell me first, when is the conference? What are the dates of the upcoming conference?
So the conference is April 11th and 12th, 2022, obviously.
Awesome. Okay, so when people sign up for the conference this year, what topics can they expect to learn about?
So many. We have like a really great, diverse plethora of topics. So like I mentioned, eating disorders in trans and gender diverse communities, neurodiversity within LGBTQ communities, pleasure sourcing through movement. We have topics on trauma and addiction. We're talking about race and identity, talking about showing up as a trans therapist, and how, what does that look like? How can you support yourself? Looking at fat and queer positive perinatal health. So we really do have a variety of topics.
Amazing. So diverse. That's incredible. And so I'm curious now, as you talk about these different topics, like that naturally leads me to think about your speakers. Like, will we get to see any familiar faces? Like, what can you say about the speakers, the presenters at the conference?
Yeah, we have a couple of more well-known people coming. So if anyone follows Jeffrey Marsh on their Instagram or possibly on their YouTube, they're an incredible Canadian activist, author. They've written a wonderful book. They do a lot of public speaking, and they focus on gender and sexuality in terms of spreading awareness, and they do it in this beautiful, compassionate, but a little bit sassy way. And so Jeffrey is our keynote, and I'll be doing having a conversation with them for that keynote address. We have a plenary address by Lucy Fielding, who is an expert in her field on all things to do with trans health and trans sex. And Lucy wrote an amazing book about trans sex. And then for those folks who came last year, Shadi was one of our presenters, and Shadi connected with their community, with their friends and their loved ones who are in the trans community, and got a lot of really amazing information and feedback from them. And it was just this beautiful presentation on how to work with gender non-conforming or trans folks in a clinical setting, but in a way that's very holistic and caring. And so this year, Shadi's taking it to the next level, is going back to their community, finding out more, and bringing back. You're going to get to hear real stories from real people.
So cool.
Which is really, I think often that's something that we don't get as therapists, is actually really hearing what has and has not been successful. We might hear about it from a clinical perspective, but what about from the client's perspective? So really getting a lot of that feedback.
That's amazing. So I know that you're just kind of scratching the surface here, because there's a whole lineup of speakers that cover the 2 days. But one other question I have for you is, when I think about attending a conference, especially like in the pre-COVID days, at in-person trainings and conferences, there are a lot of opportunities for the attendees to meet each other, to network and socialize. And I'm curious, like, how or if you're able to kind of make up for this or provide opportunities for this at an online conference.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely something that I felt was missing last year in the
Mm-hmm.
conference that I would have
Mm-hmm.
loved to have had more opportunity for. And so as I was creating this year's conference, I was really trying to think, how do we make this, it's a community conference. It's supposed to build
Right.
community. How do I do that? How do we facilitate this? And so we're doing it this year. So there's going to be essentially sort of like meaningful building, mingling opportunities where we'll go into smaller breakout rooms. And it's a great opportunity to meet other people. It's a great opportunity to process some of what has been talked about that day, to network, to build a sense of community. And so there'll be two opportunities for that throughout the conference, but within those opportunities, there'll be chances to meet a variety of people. So there'll be multiple small groups.
Oh, great. That's exciting. I love that you've incorporated that this year. And it sounds like it was really something that the participants from last year were wanting, and they're going to get it when they sign up this year.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we're kind of nearing the end here, and I'm just curious if there's anything else that participants should know about the conference, about signing up, about the cost, any deals. What else can you tell us?
So I guess first I'll talk about accessibility. So we
Yeah.
really believe in inclusivity, and that doesn't just look like LGBTQ plus inclusivity. That is the intersectional piece. We have live ASL interpreting throughout the conference.
Wow.
We also are very aware of other accessibility needs. So in terms of if there's visual accessibility, we can send out handouts ahead of time and we can help with access that way. If there is digital accessibility needs, so we've had in the past folks that didn't have internet access or didn't have access to devices, we can help facilitate that. We really want this to be accessible to folks. In terms of how to get your tickets, because I think that's a really important thing
Yes,
to know.
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, so you can check out our landingplace.com/conference. You can also, if you're on Facebook, you can check out the Queering Mental Health 2022 Facebook event page. We update both of those sites with the speaker information, which will be coming at you gradually, but we're ramping up. So keep your eye out for all of that information. The early bird pricing of $129 goes until the end of December. So if you want early bird pricing, now is the time to get your ticket. And then the price does go up in the new year. The regular price is $249.
Okay, awesome. So for people who want more information about the topics, the speakers, accessibility, or just to go ahead and sign up because they know they're ready, landingplace.com. We'll have the link on this video or very close by somewhere as you're watching. Anything else, Alice, that people should know or that you want to say?
I want to say that whether you are a seasoned queer therapist working with the queer community or you're brand new to this, there is something in there for you. The whole goal of this really is not to be exclusive or to be at a certain level that you have to get to. Come and access it for what it is for you. Take meaning away for it that it is for you. You can only work to serve your community better. That's really the only outcome of this. I can guarantee, in fact, I will guarantee that this will be an enjoyable experience. If you come to the conference like, that was not an enjoyable experience, send me an email, like, let's have that conversation. But it will be. It's a really dynamic group of presenters. And I think that the topics are so relevant. And the beautiful thing about having a conference that has an intersectional lens is that, yes, we are for sure queer and trans focused, absolutely. But a lot of what you're going to learn, thinking about like sex and disability or perinatal health, like all of this can work outside of that too. And so there really is something for everybody and for, the vast majority of the clients that you're going to see, regardless of how they show up.
Yeah. This is amazing. Thank you so much. Like, this sounds like a really unique opportunity, for people, whether they're just getting their feet wet or whether they're already immersed in the community. I just want to thank you so much for being here today, for joining us and just, giving us all of your insight and sharing all of this information. And we'll hopefully see everybody watching at the conference.
Thank you so much.